Welcome to the Warships Podcast with your host, Kellorn, Venacera, and Aaron.
Hello and welcome to episode 112 of the Warships Podcast. Today we are recording from the stream room that Tragicloss and Kami use every week here at the Wargaming North America studio in Austin. Our first guest is URL Guy. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be working for Wargaming?
I kind of bounced around between a lot of different things after college, to be honest. Never was like a gaming industry veteran. My background was like in a lot of writing, both freelance and professionally. And then I found Wargaming on a whim, and I applied, showed them my work, and initially got hired for doing content for the site. And so,
were you interested in World of Tanks or World of Warships or anything beforehand? Or?
I had what you might generously call a very casual interest in the game at best. So I just applied. It's like, I've played like a couple tanks games. I know what war games have got. I'll go apply. Their office is in the area, and they had this content manager position open. So yeah, I'll try it, and we'll see what happens.
So that was Emeryville, right?
Yes,
in California. So then you made the decision to move to Austin this year.
Yeah. So they kind of announced that they were moving the office, and like team structures were changing a little bit. But I was one of the folks who they offered to come out to Austin. And it was tough at first because just figuring out the logistics of moving, and, you have friends, family commitments, all this other stuff that's, in California.
Well, you remember Trevor and Ryan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like we had them on the podcast around the same time last year, whenever all this stuff was happening, and they were trying to decide, do we want to go? Do we want to stay? That kind of stuff. So it's interesting, they ended up deciding to stay and not stay with Wargaming. But you decided to come to Austin. So I guess, are you happy that you live here in Austin now? Or?
Oh yeah. No, like living out in Austin is great. Plus, like as the URL guy for World of Warships, it's kind of a unique role and position to have that I couldn't easily like replicate in pretty much any other company. So
we'll get to that in a minute, but we're going to have a couple of questions that all of our guests are going to answer today.
Perfect.
And so we're going to start with those. And we're going to start with, what was your favorite part of 2018 in World of Warships?
Man, that's a tough one, because I got to undertake a whole bunch of really like just fun, goofy, experimental stuff. Some of it's stuff we've done before. In April, we did the whole fish feed thing on the website, which was great because it basically turned into this month-long thing where we did multiple kind of goofy articles. And then those ended up doing pretty well. And I was actually asked to start doing more kind of recurring articles of that nature, just without the fish feed kind of labeling. And so that was great. Then, of course, there was the Halloween ARG, which is starting to become a yearly tradition now. And this one was great because it was, I got to watch it be executed on the global scale. But I think if I had to choose a moment, it would be getting the Naval Nonsense comic up and running. Because that was something that I originally, that was a project. So
those, because I always see them on Facebook.
Yeah.
So are those you're doing them completely, or?
So the idea, like the concept of the comic, like having just like this older commander and this younger, more experienced sailor bouncing off each other I think it was Pigeon of War's initial pitch. And he really wanted me to do work on it. And so we fleshed out the concepts a little more. And I usually write the scripts from comic to comic and kind of flesh out the characters a little more. And then we have an art team kind of put all this together. So
that's all here in the NA office then? That doesn't go back to St. Pete?
The art is done out of St. Pete. So We'll just say, hey, so basically we just have a whole bunch of stuff that we have pre-drawn. And then it's basically arranging them in the panels and then putting some comic bubbles on there. So it's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. But for the most part, all the sort of writing and development is done here in the office.
So what was your least favorite part about Warships this year? Did anything go wrong that you wish had gone better or anything like that?
So there are always small things that will go wrong. And even when like it's something that becomes like a snafu in the community, so to speak, it's not like a lot of things I have control over either way. So that stuff, like I take that stuff in stride mostly. I think where I struggled the most was sort of the initial relocation out here, because there were a lot of growing pains. Even though it ended up being a great decision to come out here to Austin, there was the initial decision-making process, and then, the logistical struggles of, picking up your life and moving it to a whole new state. So that was probably my low, because I was moving, nothing was set up, but we were still doing work. So it was basically me like sitting in an airport or just me sitting in the coffee shop because, my place in the office wasn't there yet, and just kind of getting done what we could.
So 2018 saw a pretty massive facelift to the World of Warships web portal.
Mm-hmm.
What was the impetus for the facelift in the first place? And what are some of the aspects of the new website that can be accomplished that you couldn't do with the previous website?
There had been a wish list of changes about the World of Warships website that had been kind of sitting around for a while. And I think the biggest aspect of the facelift has been what I call the big three, which are, if you go to the front page, they used to be like more squarish, but now it's kind of that big square and then the two kind of longish rectangles. Like a lot of that is, one, you can have an embedded video there, which is good for when we have a lot of video content coming in. And then we also have more direct control of what can be like stickied or pinned, I guess, in those two other rectangles. Because one of the biggest struggles is that there's always so much stuff going on in the World of Warships website, and that there's this constant rotation, and it's hard to sometimes keep stuff in the spotlight when we, want to have the spotlight focused on certain things.
I always used to have a lot of trouble finding things, like particularly older articles that I wanted on the old website. Does the new website address that at all? Or
so you can go? They're planning to implement a actual direct search function in the future, like click and integrate some search terms. Right now, though, we have better filtering, so you can actually go to all past news, and then you can filter based on certain categories. So if you just want to look at all kind of the historical articles, you can do that. You can go back through and look at even all the goofy stuff I've done has its own separate tag for ship posts. So that's great if you ever want to go back into some of that great quality content there.
So what's something cool about the new website that people aren't utilizing that you expected them to use on the new website when you did it?
So it's not quite a new feature per se, but sometimes the training area of the website gets a little underutilized, I think, just based on the kind of analytics that I glance at every once in a while. And apart from that, like because a lot of it isn't like strictly new features, it's kind of just how things are formatted.
Well, you mentioned analytics. So do people come to the website to look for information, or how big is the percentage of people that go straight to the premium shop?
So a lot of it's kind of divided between just new players who have never been to the website before and returning players who are just there for getting recurring information. There's a little bit of a turnover to the premium shop, as like pretty much any free to play game is going to have going on. But for the most part, it kind of does this sort of pendulum back and forth between like 60-40 new old players, and then or it shifts back around to old new players. It's not so much like there's a huge trend or anything. It is just I check it like for that week, and I'll let either like marketing know if it's like a new player thing, or I'll just let like our main team know if it's a current player thing.
So reaching back into history a little bit, you were part of the group that did the hidden links, correct? They had like the hidden meaning in some of the messages.
Yeah.
So how did that come to be, and is that something that's going to happen in the future? Because I know a lot of people really enjoyed that they had to look for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, so the first ARG was just something this just started as something I wanted to do for fun back in April of 2017. I basically said, there are no like KPIs, metrics, or anything. I just want to do this stuff for fun. Will you let me just do this stuff like I think it was in a week in March or like a week in April or something? And it's not resource intensive. So, they said, sure. We did it. I was able to get that first flag in the game, the bright yellow one. And we ended up getting a lot of good response for it. So I used that success to build on it further. And then that year around Halloween, it's like, hey, Halloween's time of year for like spooky cryptic stuff. What if we take that and we do like all these documents and hidden stuff? And then I pitched them the idea. I showed them. So the one for that year was where I had like the little alien website where it's like the animated GIF aliens. I just showed them that and the room completely lost it. It's like, yes, that's what we're doing this year. And so we went forward with that. And then that ended up doing even better than the previous one. And so I built on the success for this year, where I basically pitched it to the other teams globally and said, hey, I'm going to do this like just for NA, whether or not you guys are down. But if you want in on this, we can kind of plan something out together.
So is there anything out there right now that people haven't found?
No, they probably pretty much got it covered. Like, okay. It's basically, they're designed to be, enclosed on each other. Like once it's solved, it's done. Mm. And so there's not any like new things that are out there.
I think that you should just float one out there and not tell anybody that it's there.
I mean, so I do kind of plant things to use in the future. Mm-hmm. Like for this year on the NA part of the Halloween ARG, like one of the phrases they needed to solve the puzzle was actually a line from a naval nonsense comic that was actually published several months earlier. So like there's stuff out there that might pop up and be used in future puzzles, but I'm kind of making this up as I go, to be honest.
Well, I'm sure people look forward to that. Well, thank you for being on the show, and we'll have to talk to you again sometime soon.
All right, no problem. Thanks again.
Take care. For our second set of guests, we have Tragicloss, who's our first time on the show.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. We've been trying to get you on the show for years at this point. But we also have our former co-host, KamiSamurai. So welcome back to the show, Kami. Do you miss being on the show every week?
I do. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good banter. We did a lot of cool things on the show. Talked about a lot of different things. When it came to ships, missions, everything.
So how different is it? Do you have the same kind of conversations now that you work here that we had on the podcast?
Probably not. Our conversations are probably a lot different than what we had on the podcast.
I would only assume as such, mostly because, well, now you kind of know how the sausage is made.
Yeah. You didn't want to know, apparently.
Yeah.
So Tragic, we've never had you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to work for Wargaming and why you decided to move to Austin?
So that's kind of an interesting question. So I have a pretty long history with Wargaming, actually. Let's see, the first time that I played World of Tanks the first time I played World of Tanks was after my dad introduced me to the game, because he actually worked on the floor below the Wargaming office, and so they had like game nights, and they would occasionally intermingle. And so I kind of got to know a couple of the Wargaming crew, and I got better at the game. I was really interested in the community, and so I became a large part of the community, not just by streaming, but also participating in events, going to all of the live events that we had back in San Francisco. And so we actually had Wargaming launched, I think, 4 products in the time that we were back in California. And I went to every single launch party except for the Xbox 360 launch for World of Tanks because I wasn't old enough to get into the bar that it was being hosted at. I think I was 20.
But you're not the youngest person in wargaming.
No, I'm not. That title now goes to femininely. So both of us are currently 24 years old. So I was the youngest person, I believe, to be hired into community back in Emeryville.
And for those that don't know, Fem is in Australia, and we're very sad that she wasn't able to make it on the show. We'll get her again sometime soon.
At some point.
We certainly have a lot of questions for her that we asked Farazalith a couple of weeks ago and got some rather long-winded answers at the time. But I guess I was telling your all guy a little bit ago, we're asking everybody the same questions to start with. And that's, what was your favorite part of 2018 in World of Warships specifically, since I know you did more than that?
So far for me this year, honestly, I'm going to say both King of the Seas, both for different reasons. The first King of the Seas was interesting. It was a learning experience. And
that's when you first met Kami, right? Because he came down to stream that one?
I think so. Wait.
No, we first met when we went to
that's right. When we went to Emeryville in 2017.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was the first time I met Kami. But no, so King of the Seas the first time earlier this year was really interesting because, well, we kind of had to scramble to get our studio set up, which we're sitting in currently, and you kind of know and understand the situation.
For those that don't know, it is very warm in here right now.
We are, I believe, in a 14 by 11 room.
With the door closed.
And
the air conditioning doesn't really work that well.
No, it doesn't. And also I think the office is actually being heated right now. So even then we don't actually have AC running through the rest of the office. So it's even warmer than usual in here. But no, so the first King of the Seas was a nice learning experience. And then the most recent King of the Seas was great because we won.
Well, I'm sure that Sea Raptor will be very happy to know that you enjoyed the King,
absolutely.
King of the Seas.
Sea Raptor is a fantastic person.
We drank a lot of beer on my back patio. I'm pretty sure that
they did. I was there.
Nozu fell asleep on my back patio.
Oh my God.
That is also true.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it.
So what was your favorite aspect of 2018, Kami? Was it, I guess one of the things, was it coming to work for Wargaming?
Yeah, I think mine has to go with that, right? Like coming to work for World of Warships. Like I think that's the biggest thing that's happened. I mean, we've had a lot of in-game events, awesome in-game events, from clan battles to King of the Sea to, ranked
Turkey
sprint
shoot.
to turkey shoot. We've had a lot of cool things, but for me, yeah, definitely coming to work here. And it's not even about getting to know all the things behind the scenes. It's about just being involved with the game, streaming it for so long, playing it for so long, and now working for it. It's just been, honestly a dream come true. And I think Fem echoes this too. I think she even says, it was her dream job as well. So it's pretty cool that they hired both of us and,
Well, you guys started almost at the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Wargaming has a pretty good history actually of hiring people from the community into either community positions or like relative.
Well, it's not just NA either. I mean, in Europe, both Conway and Chrysanthos were both community.
Earl Grey even.
Yeah, Earl Grey works in St. Petersburg.
Yeah. T. Kane.
Yeah.
He was an Omni.
So, I mean, if you guys are looking for, it's not a huge leap just to suggest that you might be able to get a job. I mean, don't ever sell yourself short. Yeah. So I think that's the, but I guess that takes us to the other side of the equation. What part of 2018 was the most difficult for you in World of Warships terms?
For me personally, was probably, so when we made the move from California to Texas, from Emeryville to Austin, there was kind of a gap of time, and I believe this is kind of what URL guy was talking about. There was kind of a gap in time in which not the entire team was together yet. And so there was a lot of weird difficulties that I think everybody had to deal with in terms of getting back on track, especially since the move, we lost a lot of people. And so we had to figure out like our new responsibilities. We had to figure out our new processes. For me personally, I had to rebuild the stream room. So you saw the previous stream room. It was huge. We had essentially a small level stage. where we could do like our live, I guess, couch shows versus
and drink very nasty soda.
And yeah, exactly, and drink very nasty soda. But you know, we actually had the space to do things that we wanted to do. And so, like, even now we're sitting in the studio, we're literally almost touching knees while we're doing this podcast.
Yes,
and
we
so,
are.
And so it's
To be fair, so the last time we did this in Emeryville,
true.
we just had a table.
Yeah, that's
so we
pretty
couldn't
fair.
see our knees.
Yeah. But no, so one of the biggest challenges, I mean, I can't even say it's my least favorite thing. It's just the biggest challenge that I had to overcome these past few months, which was getting our studio up and running in a way that was like, I guess, progressive for us. So everything had to be better, but also I was restricted by the space that I had to work in terms of building out the studio. So like it was still my least favorite, but it was a challenge that I overcame and that I was able to deal with. And now we're like moving forward. And I think even if it was my least favorite part, it was a learning experience. And I can still appreciate that.
So real quick, jumping into old school host mode.
Oh no.
When in regards to the game, what do you think we did that was maybe the most controversial or something like, you know, that the community was like, you know, I don't know, we don't know if we agree with this change or not?
Let's see. I mean, some of there have been quite a few things that have been brought up by the community, such as adding more currencies into our game with steel and coal. We've also done a few things, like even the CV rework that's in the TST, which, you know, who knows when the next round of testing is going to go.
I think it's actually coming up. They did announce something about it. So even some of the changes that we are, you know, working on doing, like making changes to CVs and the mechanics, some of those are just like, they're super controversial, but I can see both sides where the players are bothered by it because of this, and this. And our response is, oh, you know, for us, it's a progressive step, because in terms of how CVs are now versus how they will be, or how they're moving towards being in terms of what they're moving towards, I think it's overall better for the game's, I guess, new player experience, but also it's progression to make the game more open and free for people to access. Well, one thing to keep in mind too is, you know, Fem went with me and some of the others to go to St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And she didn't accept the job until she had seen the CV rework, the first stages that we got to see while we were in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
So the fact that she accepted the job, that tells me that maybe she didn't love it, but she didn't think that it was the end of the world either.
No. And I agree with that. And like, even now, Fem says, oh, you know, I saw it when it was back in like way
It was
early,
janky.
like literally just the mechanics just being put in, and she did not like that. But, you know, with these rounds of TST servers that are going, she's just like, okay, I can see where this is going. Like, it's comfortable. It's still fun for her to play. And she's said that multiple times. And, you know, with her being one of the most vocal and adamant, like, supporters of the mechanics of RTS and CVs, you know, seeing her being accepting and open to these changes, I feel like some people should possibly like rethink maybe where their minds are going and see why this is progressive for the game versus being angry that it's a change.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know. I'm very open about changes, and I feel like maybe sometimes people should be a little bit more open to, you know, changes to the game, especially if it makes it more open for new players and people to be able to access more parts of the game.
What about you, Kami? What do you take exception to in-game the most from the year?
By the way, Tragic, you sounded like a principal right there.
How so?
You're just like, everybody needs to be open to changes. That sounds like you're scolding that child. But
yeah, I guess I suppose.
No, but you do have a good point. I agree with you that the game will continually evolve, right? It's going to keep changing, and yes, there's going to be things that we all personally and on a higher level of more people don't like. For me, mine is definitely the damage from AP shells from a battleship on a destroyer.
In favor of or not in favor
and not in favor of.
See, I have a problem with that too, but let's see what your thoughts are.
So here's my thought about it. I get it that the whole destroyers taking a pin, but taking like massive amounts of damage from a single pin. That is not okay, right? But here's the thing. I've seen it more times than I've ever seen it. I played this game since closed beta of destroyers just being like, you know what? If that battleship doesn't have HE loaded, I'm just going to go around this corner. I've seen multiple destroyers YOLO around corners. When back when there wasn't that change, that battleship has a chance. But if that battleship, think about it. If he's on reload, if he doesn't have HE load, and don't get me started on HE. HE is quote unquote supposed to deal the damage to the destroyers, but the problem is
it can do 0 damage.
It does 0 damage and it breaks a bunch of modules, right? And then the battleship player is helpless, right? So yes, it could lead to better team play. That is one thing. Like if you have better team play from your cruisers / your destroyers, I get it. But battleships should not be subjected to just being YOLO torped by destroyers. But then again, on the flip side, destroyers should not be, subjected to 18 kilometers away. This battleship goes, and shoots and takes 20K, right? So I feel like there could have been a little bit better job of balancing that aspect. But hey, and it's tough because battleships have such a long reload, right?
Yeah.
You think about most battleships are anywhere from 28 to 32 seconds. That's a long time to be like, oh, should I switch to HE? And by the time in the middle of switching, you're like, oh, there goes that broadside cruiser just sailing by as I'm sitting here going, fire, fire, fire. So, that for me, we've done a lot of good things as well, but I think that's the one as a battleship player. And I don't know, Kalorn could probably attest to this too, being a battleship player. It's a little rough, but we've adapted. I think a lot of battleship players have adapted.
So the other place that I feel it is playing my Stalingrad, particularly in clan battles, because I suffer from the same issue because the Stalingrad falls into the category of size of shells that will only do over-penetration damage to destroyers. So what has been the effect, do you think, on the clan battle side of things of that AP change?
Well, one of the biggest things you could see is the amount of shimikazes, right? Like if you think about the amount of shimikazes from previous seasons, yes, everybody run them for fun, or we did it even. We even did it, right? And Volger is still mad. He's still mad that we did that, right? But the difference is, I think before, most teams ran at max 2 destroyers, right? But you remember the times where battleships would be like, you'd see Montanas just dev strike those DDs. Now, even if a Montana gets 6 or 7 hits, that DD's walking away alive. Same with the Stalingrad. That's the thing. DDs should not, all classes, I'm not even to point out DDs, should not be rewarded for making mistakes, right? And yes, it's tough on DD players. I get it. Like that's the reason why this change happened. But like you said about Stalingrad, one of the things that Stalingrad has is it has big guns for a quote unquote cruiser, right? But it's really, when it comes down to killing destroyers, it's not great. And there's even to the point where you see some people, they're just like, you know what? I'm not even shooting at it because I get my 1 over pen, and that was my time. So it kind of makes Stalingrad still great against cruisers, great against battleships, but against destroyers, it's not as good. And you could attest to this, right?
Oh yeah.
I've seen you shoot at destroyers and you go 1 over pen. And it's like, we get it. It's a balancing act.
Yeah,
and it's probably something that in the future will hopefully maybe get looked at. We don't know.
Well, later on in the segment, I do want to get back to clan battles. But before we do that, I want to get back to Tragic.
Mm-hmm.
So Tragic, you and Fem have been streaming quite a bit of Warships from the new office. I guess what has worked for you this year in streaming and what has not worked so well and that you would like to change in 2019?
Let's see. We've definitely already made one change, and Kami knows what the change is. We played
giggling over here.
We played clan battles for a little bit. We did a couple of, I think we did maybe 3 streams with that, and
something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And so we realized that
Vulgar's not happy.
we found that, since a lot of us spend a lot of time working on the game versus playing the game, because, some of us have are
a wide range of skill.
Yeah, a wide range of skill. So essentially,
I'm being nice here.
So essentially, not all of us are really great at doing competitive play.
So did Kami give you guys any pointers? Like, did he
Yes.
did he give you a nice little conference room and say, this is what you do in a clan battle?
No.
I mean, we kind of tried, but
we kind of tried, but one of the biggest things, I think, is because of the wide variety of skill levels that we have within our little warships team. There are some people that possibly need a little bit more micromanaging in terms of, hey, instead of doing this, like, turn your ship the other way because this could happen. And then by the time Kami's done essentially saying that, something has happened that he's just like, okay, now I have to tell you to do something else, because that's the level of micromanagement that you kind of are needing right now. And so, like, with that wide of a variety of skill levels where some people need to be micromanaged and then other people are literally like individual play within like an actual competitive comp, it doesn't work really well. And so those streams didn't work out too great.
It's funny that you say
us.
that, because there's actually quite a few clans that have talked to us that have a lot of those struggles where they're trying to figure these things out themselves. And so I think that those showing struggle like that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because there's a lot of clans that go through the same issue. Back when Kami and I were in Impact together, Kami was part of the leadership and part of the calling team, and we had players that didn't always understand what the callers were trying to say. I was sometimes one of them that they had to micromanage what I was doing a little more than they wanted to. So I mean, I don't necessarily think that specific aspect is a bad thing, but you also have to make it entertaining.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was kind of one of our biggest downfalls was we are wargaming and we are World of Warships, but we don't necessarily have the same understanding as some of our players do, because, some of these people play for several hours a day and they're spending all this time, learning the intricate details of all of the ways that, maps work and how certain ships go against each other and why it's better to do this instead of this. And so I don't think that really worked out for us. Those were probably some of our worst streams. Like, if I'll be completely fair and like honest.
No, well, but I mean, like, what do you want to do next year? Like, it's going to be better. Like, do you have ideas about what you would like? What's
more me?
Nice?
Yeah,
more Kami. You're part of the. So those that don't know, Kami is now part of the community team instead of the customer service team. Correct?
Yeah, I've moved from support to community, so you'll see more of me.
Yeah, we're definitely going to throw. Yeah, we're definitely going to throw him in front of the camera.
Fem, and Kami in this little room together at the same time?
Oh man, we already did. We did that last week.
Yeah, we did that last week.
Yeah,
and you talk about it.
Because of him, we talked about food for like most of the time that we were
Have you ever watched one of his streams?
Me and Fem never talk about food, like, ever. Sometimes we're just like, oh man, that sounds really good, we should do that after work, and we do. But like with Kami in the room, like,
it's all about food.
Almost like 80% of the stream was literally just like, oh man, we have Korean barbecue at the end of this week. What about ice cream? Oh man, battleships, you can eat ice cream while you're playing them. That was almost, I heard that at least 5 times during yesterday.
It was J-Dog, right?
Yeah, so one of the players that we played a lot of games with, he was the one that actually started this. We would hear and we're like, and we'd be like, J-Dog, what are you doing? He goes, I just finished my bowl of ice cream. And we're like, wait, you've been playing this whole time? He was like, yeah, it was great ice cream. So this is kind of, he gets the credit for the whole ice cream thing.
He would only play battleships because with the 30-second reload, he could eat in between shots.
Yeah, so this is kind of where we learned it.
When you started doing that lip smacking thing, because I'm the one wearing the headsets, that was like in my brain.
You're welcome.
I don't know if I ever want to hear your lips that close to my ears ever again.
Okay, so late this year we saw the addition of Twitch containers that people can get by just watching. Is it just the Wargaming stream or
No.
anybody's stream?
It's anybody who's streaming World of Warships. So this is actually a question that we've been getting like quite a bit for almost the entirety of this week and even the entirety of last week. But essentially, Twitch containers, you have a random chance every hour. And so your hour goes up and you actually get an increase. Fem actually made a post about this on the forums. Every hour that you watch, there's an actual increase the next hour that you watch.
The stream has to be registered to be World Warships.
So as long as the stream...
Just like take us from the top, like what do you... If say I wanted to try and get these containers, what do I have to do?
So the first thing that you want to do in order to start getting Twitch containers by watching Twitch streams, you want to link your Wargaming/World of Warships account to your Twitch account. So in order to do that, you need to log into the World of Warships portal. Your name is in the top right-hand corner. You're going to click on that. Right in that drop-down menu at the bottom, it says Account Management. If you click on that, it'll bring you to, obviously, your account management page. And on that page is like a specific section for you to link your account to other sites. And so one of them is obviously specifically for Twitch. So you're going to link your Twitch account. It's probably going to ask you to log into your Twitch account. You're going to log in, and it's going to ask you to link them. And so
is it Twitch Prime only, or is it anybody with Twitch?
It's anybody with Twitch.
Oh,
so
nice.
Twitch Prime is actually something slightly different, and I can also go slightly into that.
That's been part of the confusion, too. Some people have thought that they had to be Twitch Prime members to get these containers.
No. So you don't actually have to have Twitch Prime to receive any of the Twitch containers. However, when you link your account, you'll immediately, well, not immediately, it takes a little while for it to get credited. You'll automatically get one Twitch container. And then so after that, then you know that your account is like officially linked. And then once you start watching streams, every hour you have a chance of getting a Twitch container. And so one of the biggest things I think that people are having difficulty is, I do know not every streamer automatically turns their Twitch drops on. And so one of the things I've been telling viewers is please check with the streamer to see if they do have Twitch drops turned on, because I think there are some people who've been watching hours and hours of people who don't have Twitch drops on, and so they're not getting the Twitch containers.
So what are in these Twitch containers for that people could get?
I believe it's a mix of like camos and credits, and there's a couple of other things. I don't actually know all of the stuff that's in these. I just know how
Twitch person at Wargaming.
Yeah.
It's a big Twitch containers.
You get goodies.
Yeah, you get goodies. So you get a lot of like little things. I'd have to honestly double check to see what's actually.
Fem's post, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't think she actually has what's inside them on her post. She just explains how they work. So that's actually on the forums, and I can send you the link that she posted.
We'll link that in the episode description.
Okay, cool. So that's.
Yeah, and please, when you ask a streamer if they have Twitch drops enabled, be polite. Don't just go in there and be like,
drops? Question mark?
I want my boxes, because they might not know. Like if it's a newer streamer or something, they may not know what you're actually talking about. So,
like if you want guaranteed like someone with Twitch drops on, I would always double check with any of the CCs. So if you follow the main or the Warships Twitch channel, anybody that we're following on there, most if not everyone should have Twitch drops on, because it doesn't. Well, personally, it doesn't make sense for me to see any of the CCs not having it turned on.
I can virtually guarantee all the ones that actually stream do. So, so I wanted to get back to Clan Wars for just a second, Kami. So we've recently started season 4, and for those that don't know, full disclosure, Kami and I are both in the same clan and both play on the same team occasionally. We both have several teams that play in ZR. But what has been surprising to you about this clan's battle season compared to the previous ones?
Well, I think I'll have to go back to season 2 because I didn't actually play last season because I came here.
You played Shimakaze.
Oh well, I played Shimakaze and we made Volgar mad. So there was that.
That's a successful clan battle season.
So, I think we already won. Volgar So next time you guys talk to Volker, ask him about that and see if he's still mad. But I think the biggest change is, and I think I was talking to somebody else about this the other night, but is where ships have changed in priority. And what I mean by that is when you look back at the early seasons, there were very few ships that were chosen. When you were a battleship, you were a Yamato and even to a lesser extent a Montana. And then as the season went along, Montana kind of phased down. It was just Yamato. You look at the cruisers. There was a lot of Des Moines. There was a lot of Zhaos. And now you look and you can't go anywhere without seeing Henris, Stalingrads, Worcesters. You see honestly, Zhao has gone from being one of the most played ships.
Well, Hindenburg too.
And so Hindenburg.
There was a season where it was all Hindenburg.
Season 1, it was, what do we call it? We call it the mean comps, right? You would see a bunch of Moskvas and a bunch of Hindenburgs. And if you look at the season now, Moskva's kind of been phased out for Stalingrad. And Hindenburg and Zhao, some teams still run a Zhao, but Hindenburgs are almost nowhere to be seen.
So question, would you say that there's more variety or less variety in terms of like the ships that people pick for each class even, or each
I would say there's more
composition?
variety in terms of what I'm seeing in both in compositions and in individual ships.
Yeah, I would say because we've added so many ships and so many tier 10s, I think there is a bigger variety. And honestly, some of the ships that were effective in those early seasons this season aren't as effective because of ships that have been released.
Or nerfed because the Hindenburg got lost its reload.
It lost its reload but gained a heal, right? So it became a little bit more tanky, but less on the DPM side. Yeah. So teams, I think, have traded certain ships for other ships. Like the Henri has become the big thing this season. When back in the early seasons, you're like, they brought an Henri, and we laugh at them. But now you look at it.
It has the reload booster.
Yeah.
It's fast.
And some of the ships have changed, like the Henri, right? You added it as an awesome consumable.
But it also penetrates Stalingrads with the IFHE.
That's the biggest thing, right? And that's why you've seen, I wouldn't say the resurgence, more of just the numbers of Henris, because
it never was a thing before.
It wasn't, but now because you need to get rid of Stalingrads with IFHE, the Henri does a great job. And honestly, the Stalingrad sometimes struggles out at that range to do the big hits, right? Whereas if it's shooting at a Zhao, I've seen Zhao's angled take citadels, right through the aft.
The Henri as well.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing is the meta has changed again. And another one that has shown a resurgence is the Shimakaze. And we had talked about this before we started the cast. You remember, it was almost always Gearing or Yu Yang. Now you see Shimakaze for spawning for that Harugumo, right? A lot of teams are running multiple DDs.
Harugumo is a good question. So has the addition of Harugumo been a bigger impact on this season than Stalingrad? Because Stalingrad was what everybody was like, everybody's going to have Stalingrad now. It's season 4 because we all got our Stalingrads from clan battles. But it's really been Harugumo that I think has been the biggest change factor for clan battles this season.
Well, it's kind of an in-between ship, right? Like it's not fully a destroyer because it has pretty bad concealment, but it can put out so much damage. And I think that's the thing. Because if you start thinking about Henri, what's it susceptible to? HE. And if you and we've seen it. We've ran into Worcester / Harugumo together.
Oh, that's awful.
And you can't push it, right? Because you'll die before you get there. So, yeah, I think Stalingrad was the big one, right? Like, and there was the whole meme thing and everything. But when you start thinking about the Stalingrad's big, it's cumbersome, it's always spotted. You know where the Stalingrad is. You won't know where the Harugumo is, right? It could just show up, and then all of a sudden you're getting spammed by HE. So I have to agree with you on this season's been an interesting, maybe a microcosm of the game, right? When that ship came out, there was a huge uproar. Like, oh my gosh, this ship is going to be, terrible. And it is. Honestly, if you're in a battleship and you run into that thing in a random game, you're just like, oh gosh.
It's awful.
And
we did that the other day. You and I were playing, and I was in my Yamato, and what was it, Gaishu?
Yeah.
And Gaishu and his freaking Harugumo, it was just a rain of fire on my deck.
And yes, it still takes full battleship pins, right? But you got to be able to find it.
Yeah. And
you got to be able to see it. And then you got to hope whatever's spotting it for you is alive long enough for you to hit it, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of things. And good players, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Good players in any type of ship like that are going to excel. So, this season's been getting back into it for me has been a lot of fun. Just seeing just seeing the different ships and seeing the different ships shine, right? Like each season, there's always been a certain group of ships that you're like, I never thought about that being. And then all of a sudden you're like, there's 4 of them. And every match you go into, you're like, oh, look at all of them, right? Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun.
So of the ships that you've gotten to play, which has been your favorite this season so far?
Honestly, probably the Henri. I mean, every night that I'm there, that's pretty much
friendships.
That's pretty much what I play. And it's funny because everybody kind of knows me as a battleship player, right? But
you are the battleship
player. I'm a battleship player. But I will tell you that I'm not good enough to play Battleship in ZR. And that tells you something about, and do you feel the same way?
I mean, I honestly, there are better, I'm a really good shot in a Battleship. Yeah. But there are people that strictly are better at Battleship than I am. But I think that's the thing, right? When you get into a clan where there's a lot of people with high levels of skill, you have to adapt yourself to fit in where they need you.
Yeah.
So, I can honestly say, I played strictly Zhao, right? All the way up until this season. And now, I'm strictly Henri. They actually had me play Wooster the other night. And
see, I've been playing Stalingrad, and I have played a Knight of Yamato.
But that's kind of good, right? Stalingrad kind of for you probably feels kind of like home.
Yeah.
For me, it's a complete different home. I'm over at your home. No, but that's the whole thing, right? If you're a good player and you're in a good clan, you have to adapt not only your play but to the clan.
So for other clans out there, how has it been different this season being a part of ZR as opposed to being in Impact that we were in before?
I think expectations are higher, right? ZR's won the last 2 seasons, right? They've been the top of the mountain. And especially with, the global ranking thing coming out, I don't know if you ever looked at that, but if you actually go to the clan rank, you can hit global ranking. It'll tell you where you stand. With 07 winning King of the Sea, I feel like there's a little bit of pressure on the clans to kind of step up. Yes, King of the Sea is a different genre, but still, do you want them to be the kings of both? No, you kind of want to do that, right? So, and ZR has been known during clan battles to be very good. We remember being in Impact, and we struggled a lot just trying to figure out how do we beat them. I think we beat them.
See, the interesting thing that I found is that when we were in Impact, when we made mistakes, we always lost.
Yep.
I mean, we had to play mistake-free to win. In ZR, if we make mistakes, it's not an automatic loss. That's what I found to be the difference.
And that goes.
There's contingency plans.
Well, it's more of it goes to you talked about earlier mechanics, right? A lot of people in ZR, and this isn't to discredit people in Impact because they also play really well, but it's the little things matter the most in clan battles, and you see the good clans, they don't make those mistakes that lose you matches, or they're able to overcome some type of maybe you did have a mistake, but they're able to overcome that and still kind of win. And I think that's the thing is what you want, a fair balance of skill, but also ships. We've talked about it before because you've asked questions about it. Ships is a slower game, right? A lot of people come from first person shooters or different genres of games. Ships is slower, but there are those times in ships where it's incredibly fast. Right? When you get into that brawling situation or you're in one of those situations where the game's coming down to the wire, those are the situations where skill matters.
Yeah. Well, because, this is something that I've even learned from tanks is when you're in such a small team, since some of these matches are literally 7v7, if you're in such a small team and just one mistake can kind of snowball into multiple mistakes. There's also, with callers, the best callers can see mistakes coming from the other team, but they can also exploit that mistake. So if they see that coming, they can go for that and push on it and pressure that. Whereas, in normal random battles, that's not something that, that's one singular person taking into account. It's multiple people fighting their own kind of own little battles in some ways, which is why randoms can be, so decisive in certain ways. Whereas with clan battles, they're always usually just kind of close until you get that one mistake that the other team can push on.
Well, and this for a fact, right? There have been clan battles that we've been in where there's one death, right? Or none, right? Because what it comes down to, a lot of it is positioning, right?
Yeah.
Like positioning is key. I mean, being a great shot is really important.
Well, you make that point, and like we played against a team that was a Gale League team because we were in the queue for so long the other night, and they were very frustrated that they knew they were playing one of the better teams, and they were frustrated that they were playing us, and so they just threw all their ships at us. They killed more of our ships in just straight rushing us than most teams had the whole night. Even though the game wasn't close, they still killed us, even though closer games we had stayed alive. So, it's one of those things where sometimes just looking at who killed who doesn't really matter. You have to die for a purpose. Is kind of the
well, and it matters.
Die with purpose.
Well, no, it really, and sometimes it comes
Good life motto.
and sometimes it comes down to what ship died.
Yes.
I mean, that's also a big thing. So
if you lose your destroyer too early and the only one you have, it's a very difficult thing to come back from.
Because ships is also a vision game. It's position,
yes,
vision, and I think health management.
Yes.
Look, she does know what she's talking about.
She does. It's great.
People don't know that I actually know what I'm talking about because I don't play ships well, but I know the things that I don't do well.
It's more because you haven't ever been on the show and no one's got to hear from you.
That's also fair.
So was it you that posted on Twitter that to ask for questions for people, or was that somebody else?
I think that was somebody else.
Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of questions on Twitter, and so I'm going to pull one of the questions for you guys.
Oh, fun.
It comes from Abomination.
Oh, I know who he is.
We know who that is.
Yeah.
He actually asked about 14, but we're going to go with one. Okay. And he asked, how many players leave after experiencing the unprotected matchmaking after Tier 5?
I personally don't know the answer to that, but I do know, like, most games, in terms of, like, just, like, the gaming industry overall, or rather free-to-play games, there's a funnel. Mm-hmm. So for every single free-to-play game, there's a funnel. The top is obviously the biggest because that's what gathers everybody in. So they start at the top of the funnel, and as they work their way through the game, the funnel gets smaller because there's less people like that are willing to go through some of the parts of the game. And so, your funnel gets smaller, and then some people come out the other end, and those are the players that, stick with the game for a really long time. And so, let's see. Can you reiterate the question?
Do they leave after when they get to unprotected matchmaking? So I guess for both of you, that's Tier 6 in my opinion.
Yeah,
is that's when you really get to. Is that a skill wall, or is it something that? And if it is a skill wall, what do you guys think is the answer to kind of overcome it for newer players?
I mean, for most, if not any game, there is a point in which people will hit a skill wall. And so if you look at games like League of Legends, if you look at games like, let's see, what's another free-to-play game? I don't know, MapleStory even. So if you look at those kinds of games, there's a wall that every single player hits. This is not just for World of Warships. Essentially, there is a point where players start to just churn out. And so that's just like a term in the industry is churning, is like players coming in and out of the game. Sometimes newer players will churn out at a certain place because the skill wall gets to a point where they're not willing to continue up that ladder. And so there definitely is a point in time where new World of Warships players will leave, but I don't necessarily think that there's a singular point, but I definitely think that there are several places where we can improve our new player experience. And I think one of them is, I know we've been putting out these videos really recently, but some of our mechanics videos, those are absolutely fantastic. I think that's they're a great resource for literally anybody from the new player to even experienced players, because not only does it go into the nitty gritty of how these mechanics work, but you can start putting together how they interact with each other. And so, personally, I have watched these videos like several times over, and I personally still can't fully comprehend all of these mechanics and how they interact with each other.
It's interesting because I spent a lot of time talking to Little White Mouse.
Yeah.
And most of this is stuff that we kind of already worked out on our own, but it's great to have the official confirmation.
Oh, absolutely.
But I also think that we can blame a lot of this on Kami. Because Kami has like 1,000 battles in his Fuso, so they get to the unprotected matchmaking and Kami kills them in his Fuso.
Yeah, no,
so we
absolutely.
can totally blame this on him.
Hold on. In those videos, what's the ship that's getting shot at all the time?
It's your Fuso.
It's probably mine, right? So to go with the question, I mean, there's going to be someone later on that comes on the show that I think this question's actually going to be really good for.
Yeah.
But I think what I would tell people that hit the quote unquote wall, we've all gone through it, right? Everybody that's made it to a tier 10 has gone through, oh man, I'm tier 6, that's tier 8.
Even hitting like tier 5.
Yeah, like that's
the half. That's the halfway point.
Yeah.
Tier 5 is where you start to see up tiers, right?
Yeah.
Two tier up tier, whereas below that it's 1 tier.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're in a tier 5 and a tier 7 game, or a tier 6 and if you're up tiered, do your best to support your higher tier ships. If you're in a cruiser, pay attention. Like look at your map. Make sure your mini map's big so you can see it. Pay attention to what's over there. Pay attention to what can do a lot of damage to you, right? I mean, I can attribute to this. I mean, playing a battleship, I love seeing cruisers that just come out and they're just like, they look like they're oblivious, right? Like they have no idea. So always be playing with your throttle, always be maneuvering. And more times than not, that battleship, they're going to hit you. But if you're maneuvering, doing things, more times than not, they're not going to hit you for your whole HP pool, right? And Kalorn knows this, being in a battleship, shooting at a broadside cruiser. Sometimes even RNG gets you, right? But more times than not, you laugh because boom, there goes the cruiser. Yeah. So I would tell you, learn your ship. Tier 5 is really where it starts to separate. Have you watched videos? Have you paid attention to the mechanics? Because that's really where it starts separating, because you start seeing higher tier ships that can do a lot of damage to you. Yeah. So just stick with it. We have a lot of great CCs that do videos, that stream. You're not going to be able to emulate them 100% of the time. But what you can do is go watch and see what they did in certain situations. And when you find yourself in that situation, try to do your best. Like if you're in a situation where you're by yourself on one flank, maybe it's time that you, instead of just keep going, and we see it, we've all seen it, instead of just keep going until you find something, maybe turn around and look for some support. Yeah. And a thing that's really undervalued is team communication, right? Yeah. And we all know that. Oh, yeah. Because the minute you start giving advice to someone, what happens? The salt comes out, right? So I'm not saying every battle be like armchair captain and tell people what to do, but be like, hey, if there's a destroyer or there's a low health ship, target them and hit F3. So maybe get your
actually one of the best things to do.
Get your teammates to recognize that enemy ship is low. If there's a destroyer spotting you, say, hey, look, I don't know which DD it is, but there's a DD over. Yeah. You can be helpful even bottom tier. Yeah. Just support your upper tier, and if you're contraring fire with them, more times not, and you've seen this, battleships like to shoot at other battleships, right? Yeah. A lot of times
because they want to get rid of the big guys.
A lot of times they'll leave you alone while you're just playing. They're like, oh, it's just a tier 5, whereas pretty soon you're in that tier 5 and you have 50k damage because you've been burning said battleship that doesn't care about you, right? Yeah. So just help your higher tier and just learn your ship, I guess.
I think all in all, like, unprotected matchmaking doesn't as much really affect new players as some people think it might, because like regardless, you're always, even outside of being protected from, better players, eventually you're always going to start, facing people who are better than you. And I think it's never about, the part of their gameplay that they're being protected. But as soon as they move out of that, like, it gives you an expectation of players are going to be better than you. And if you really want to play a game and you really want to have fun in the competitive way, you're going to have to make that jump at some point. And I think that, with protected matchmaking, after that, throwing them out there, they're still going to do that eventually. Like, protected matchmaking isn't necessarily making it better for them, and then suddenly they're out to the wolves. But
it's like taking the training wheels off, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's got to happen eventually.
It's got to happen. And if you're going to get better at the game, you're going to have to learn to deal with bottom tier.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all done it. I mean, unless you're going to consistently just play tier 10s, you're going to be bottom tier at some point.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, it's great advice. Just, don't always say matchmaking beat you.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've been bottom tier and we've won because you do what you need to do to help your team, right? Like it really shows if you can become a team player, if you can win as bottom tier. And don't forget, if you're bottom tier and you're shooting higher tier ships, you get more experience.
One of my first Krakens, I think, was playing a tier 6 and a tier 9 match.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was way back.
Wait, do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We both played in closed beta.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We remember that.
No. I failed division into a tier 9 match.
You heard that?
I won that match.
You heard that, right? Tragic fail divs, by the way.
Hey, it was only one time, and I won, and I was actually, I think, the top of the leaderboard.
So back in beta,
I played alpha.
There was a 3-tier spread.
I know, I played alpha.
And and when you play,
it was just such a nightmare.
It was Yamato's shooting at Colorado.
It was such a nightmare.
It was not good.
Well, and that's the thing, right? This is kind of funny, reflecting back on the game. Do you remember 2 CVs versus 1 CV?
Oh, yeah.
1 CV versus no CVs.
2 CVs versus no CVs.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, it was before, people nowadays that are coming to the game that are newer to the game, they didn't have to go through where you're a ranger playing an Essex, right? Like,
I mean, I think that's just like a product of being a veteran player is you remember worse times.
Yes.
And so you have new players who are coming in who are seeing the current issues or who are feeling some of the current pressures of the way the game is now and don't realize, actually previously there used to be different issues and now at this point in time there are these issues. Yeah. Like sometimes, some issues are just, constant because no one is ever going to be 100% happy with the way things are at all. Like that's that is pie in the sky. Everyone is going to be happy with the game.
You know what would make me happy?
This isn't Disneyland.
No.
You know what would make me happy? The Fuso needs 2 more turrets.
It does not need. No. But we're going to have to close it off here because we got to get a couple more guests in here. But I want to thank both of you guys for being on the show. Tragic, your first time on the show. And
it was fun.
It was nice to have Kami back after being off the show.
It's like my second time. But it was great. It was great being back. And, I listened to the show, because I'm in the position now that I get to listen to it. I don't got to record it every week. So, no, it's fun. It's fun listening to the guests and listening to the topics because we know a lot of things because we work here. Yeah. But it's great to hear the community and sentiment and their feelings because really, we see a lot of things like they don't listen to us, they don't do this. We do. We truly do. Yeah. So don't think that we don't. So we want to hear that. We want to hear feedback.
And obviously this is Kami going from like being a part of the community to being part of the Warships community team. Like we do listen and there's so many things that we would love to just like put in the game, but for some things it's not possible. For some things there's just like it maybe in the future, and then for other things it's just like the way that it would be implemented break things more.
If we can fix the port interface so that it doesn't take forever for me to choose something.
Oh, here we go.
That's
it. We gotta go.
We're done. Bye.
Have a good one. And welcome back. This is our third session of at Wargame North America. We have RadarX from the Community Management Division, and we have Sasha. What is your title, actually, Sasha? Like just headman or?
My title is Regional Publishing Director. So I'm kind of a head of the team responsible for publishing of World of Warships on NA region.
And so how did you end up here in America as part of the Warships team?
First of all, I came to United States to study, so I was a student. Then upon graduation and getting my master's degree, I started looking for a job, and I joined Wargaming because I think it was a great fit for me. I wanted really hard to work for video games, and I knew that wargaming is coming from Russia, Belarus. So I presented myself. The company hired me, and then I learned about Warships. So yeah, Warships was the game developed in St. Petersburg, my hometown. So I was excited to work for Warships. I was excited to visit my hometown and like not only meet with developers, but also like hang out with my friends and family.
So you get back to St. Petersburg a couple times a year then?
Yeah, a couple of times a year I visit St. Petersburg. Every time I'm making sure to say hi to my mom. Yeah, and of course work on our game.
Well, and we've had Tony on the show, at RadarX, several times. He and I actually did get to go visit your hometown earlier this year.
We did.
That was quite the experience.
It was. It was my first visit to Russia, and it was very interesting. Very interesting.
It's like I always would love to go back again because it was such a cool trip that it was just had a lot of fun, and the guys the Warships office there were pretty cool. So, well, we're going to ask you guys the same questions we asked everybody else at the start here, and that was what was your favorite part in 2018 about World of Warships?
In terms of business, I'm very happy how Warships is performing. I think North America is the strongest region, like year over year, out of all regions. And in terms of like things that happened during this year, my favorite part was King of the Sea, like King of the Sea 6, King of the Sea 7. Like both of them were great. I was very happy how they looked on Twitch streams. Yeah, so I would say so. These highlights.
Tony?
It's been a whirlwind year for us. I mean, so much has happened with the team and with with the content coming out. Probably my favorite moment is just actually seeing what our team formed into. Like our community team, we have a lot of new people. We brought on Fem, we brought on Kami. And
so how did you steal Kami from Sasha?
Kami has always had a very strong community. He's always been a strong part of the community. He's an exceptional player. He understands I actually trick him sometimes. God, I hope he doesn't listen to this. But no, I will actually test him sometimes. Like I'll throw something I see on the forums, just see what he says, just see if he knows about it. He always does. It's infuriating. But I think bringing our team together this year has been really great. I think we have some great chemistry. I think we are making, huge inroads into the NA community with the community team. But if I had to pick a content, I think I'd say American Cruisers. I got to come in, multiple times a week and just go America. And everyone knew what I was talking about because, the American Cruiser line was coming out.
So the other opposite side of that is, what was your least favorite aspect of 2018? What was the most difficult thing for you?
My favorite thing was also probably my least favorite thing at the beginning. We kind of had to do some rebuilding on the community side. As we moved here to Austin, it was we had to fill some roles, we had to bring in some new people, and it was very challenging. There were a lot of things that I was not able to do this year that I had hoped to do, just because we were in the process of gaining new resources. Wargaming was very supportive. They allowed us to bring in a full team. This is actually one of the largest teams I've ever worked on in the industry, so it's been very exciting for me. But the getting over the hill of,
So what were some of the things that you wanted to do this year that you didn't get to?
A lot of it was just do more. We want to do more forum engagement. We wanted to talk to our influencers more. We wanted to have, a greater Reddit presence. We wanted to, have, do more events, things like that. These are things that, we weren't prepared to do this year, but we've got a lot planned for next year.
What was some of the challenges that you faced this year, Sasha?
I would say not being able to fulfill some of the promises that we made, some of the commitments for the year. So apparently we delayed and took a bit more time than we expected with reworking carriers, with addressing radar issue, with addressing like clan battles design, like not having carriers in clans and not being able to play across realms. So all of these things we are still working on, and we understand how they are important for community and for players.
So we've got quite a few questions that have been set aside for the two of you. So and they are different than the stuff we've been talking about earlier. So we're going to jump into that. The Christmas containers have been a little bit more controversial this year, with some players feeling as though they have a lower chance of getting the ship they want than in previous years. The containers have been something of a minor legend in the World of Warships community in the last 3 years. But how do you feel? Are they good for the game as a whole? And are you happy with where they got tweaked this year, or would you like where they were a couple of years ago?
I think, yeah. I mean, I can say about Santa boxes because, like, I was actually the person behind them. Like, this concept started as a concept of. It started very differently. So it used to be a Secret Santa idea. So when players make gifts to unknown players, and if you make a gift, you also receive a gift back. And this concept just didn't work. Nobody understood what's the value of it, and I proposed to change it. And now loot boxes is something that every industry does. By the time when we introduced loot boxes, like, they were not so popular, but eventually it worked really well because for people it was a very clear concept. And I think that they're beneficial because they make expensive content, expensive ships more accessible to players who don't have huge budgets for them. So some players cannot spend $60 on digital content. They can buy a few boxes and have a random chance of getting one. So speaking of the decreased chances, I can confirm that this is the thing, and there is a reason behind that, because all loot boxes are designed mathematically. So we know for sure that there is no rigging, that there is everything should be working correctly. You just need to keep into account that this year we added much more content than it was available a few years ago. So now you get much more ships, and you get ships on tier 10, like you get Missouri, you get Musashi in Kronstadt. So average value of the ship, if you if you get rerolls, average value of these ships increased. So that's why the likelihood, the probabilities also decreased. But in the end, the mathematical expected value out of loot box didn't change.
So I don't know if you saw, but Little White Mouse actually posted an analysis of the price per box about what the difference was, and it came out to being slightly more than what the cost was even before you got a chance for a ship. So I think that was good on you guys, that is the way that they worked out. So
yeah, because we also guarantee the value of the money spent, that you get it back. And on top of this value, you also have a chance for extra content. So,
Tony, we've been talking about this offline a little bit, but steel has been a pretty hot topic over the last few weeks, and we've discussed it on the show quite a bit with some of our guests. But the upcoming events hold the possibility of earning steel through non-competitive methods, including a way of buying in the premium shop a campaign. Now, there was the video that you guys put out the other day about this coming out, but it didn't include values of steel and how much you might earn. Is that still something that's being discussed internally about what amount of steel is eligible to be earned through non-competitive methods?
I mean, the primary motivation, obviously, behind this is we want to make steel available to people who realistically aren't going to have a chance to earn it. We're not looking to grant people a free Stalingrad, right? We're not going to rain steel down upon the average mass. What we're doing is there are people that play, that can't play clan battles, right? They work 12 hours a day, or sometimes that's me. Sometimes, I can't go home and play clan battles, right? Or maybe they don't have a clan. But campaigns like this are going to offer them the opportunity to earn a little bit of steel, to kind of get a taste of what steel can provide them in the arsenal, right? Obviously, our team is constantly watching the feedback. So to say something under discussion, things are under discussion even after they've launched. We are watching feedback almost in real time and constantly discussing internally and making tweaks, when they need to be made.
So when will we know about how much we can earn steel-wise with these events?
I think you see some announcements coming up pretty soon.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to those. So, Sasha, back to you. I want to ask, back in April when we were in St. Petersburg, one of the big things that Sub Octavia talked about was moving to the 4-week development cycle from the 3-week development cycle. And I wanted to ask, how has this 4-week development cycle affected you guys here at the North America office? And has it been helpful to go to a monthly patch rather than a patch every 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think the improvements are very visible. So right now, like, we have additional week to test the patch and address any issues that we find. So the quality has improved. We have much less issues when we release the patch and something is broken, something requires hot fixing, something requires messaging to players, issuing compensations. So that allows us to have more time in publishing to work on other initiatives, on community engagement initiatives, on different projects, as opposed to reacting to fires.
So 2018 also saw the release of French battleships, several line splits, and Royal Navy destroyers, as well as a number of premium ships that kind of fill in the gaps. Did the number of ships that were released in 2018 exceed your expectations, or was it less than you guys expected at the start of the year?
It definitely exceeded my expectations. Now, obviously, Sasha was probably watching this a lot closer than I was. But for those of you who watched Femninley's stream, she did a shipload of ships. She originally pitched the idea to me. I was like, oh, it's going to be like 5 or 6 ships. And she gave me a list. I was like, oh, my God, we released a lot of ships last year. So for me, I was definitely a little taken aback about how many ships we had released and how much content we had provided everybody.
19.
Yeah,
19.
And this is only premium ships. As for researchable ships, I think we delayed one branch, but it will be released very soon.
But I guess, is that, like I said, is that something, did it exceed your expectations for 2018, or did you feel left short of what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we expected one more branch.
Oh, okay. So we'll find out what that is very, very, very soon. So 2018 saw a pretty quick succession of clan battles, followed by rank battles, followed by clan battles, followed by rank battles, as well as the successful ranked sprint season that we recently had, and we just started clan battle season 4s. At times, it felt something like a frenetic pace for the amount of competitive content. Were you satisfied with the amount of competitive content, or was it too much or too little? Because it felt like for some of us that were trying to do all of it, that it was a little too much. And I know I spent 2 or 3 months playing very little warships because I was a little burnt out about it. So I guess what was you guys feeling on the publishing side about how much of that competitive content was released?
Yeah, so sometimes on publishing side, we look into stats, and we even question ourselves if we understand players enough, because we see some people are hyper engaged, super engaged, and maybe maybe we have too much content. Maybe we have not enough content. I don't know. So that's why we set up those experiments, and the reason why we had so many sprints is because we wanted to test many hypotheses, and we also wanted to make them more accessible. So that's why we did these sprints on lower tiers. So right now we don't have final conclusions, but I can definitely say that we learned a lot from iterating.
It's definitely a fine line to walk. You need to provide enough content for the hyper-engaged, but you also want to make sure that what you do have is accessible. I mean, I think that was the primary goal of the team for the rank sprints. Even someone like me who really doesn't have enough time to do rank really well because I'm not as good as everyone else. The rank sprints weren't that bad. It was very quick. I played some battles and, I ranked out and I was happy. So I think The team has definitely taken feedback on it, but we definitely got some positive feedback around them.
Well, ranked sprints did feel, like you said, a lot lighter and a lot easier to kind of digest. But I want to talk more about one aspect of ranked sprint that was new, and beyond it being the shorter season, but you experimented with 2-player divisions in ranked sprint. How successful or unsuccessful did you guys find that? We talked about this several years ago when we were back when you guys were back in Embryville, and when we talked with Trevor and Nico, they were very adamant that the feeling then was that divisions had no place in ranked because ranked was supposed to be a solo game mode. So how did that change, and are you happy with the results of ranked sprint from the division standpoint?
So unfortunately, right now we don't have answer to this. This is still being analyzed. I can only say that there is no such there is no such concept of making ranked mode for solo play. The reason why full divisions were not allowed was only to avoid steamrolling and imbalance. So because divisions are very impactful, and they
felt very impactful in ranked sprint. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys end up thinking about.
That's why we tried this baby step with introducing two-player divisions, and the results are still being analyzed.
Gotcha. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about that. So, looking ahead to 2019, what in your minds, from your perspective, needs the most improvement in the game in 2019?
I would say our general strategy is to add more diversity of gameplay. That's what we are trying to fix with reworked carriers and with submarines. So and without, of course, ruining balance. Yes, we want more more different classes to be represented. Not only 3 classes and one class pops up and ruins the experience for everybody. No, we want 5 classes to be to have very equal representation. Not 30 and 1%, but something like 20. Yeah.
So you foresee submarines coming into the full game then in the future?
Yeah. So right now, as I understand that, based on the experiment with submarines during the Halloween, we don't have any evidences that submarines will ruin everything. So we will keep iterating the prototype, and we will see. I hope that the chances are high.
Chieftain eat more crow?
We already ate a sandwich. I mean, what do you want? What do you want?
Yeah.
But what about you, Tony? What do you, from your perspective, what needs the most improvement in 2019?
I mean, it's really hard to beat his answer. I mean, he covered, I think, primary. What are the primary goals?
How your community focus? So
Sure.
On the community side, what aspect of 2018 would you like to see done better in 2019?
We've been doing a lot of team building, building our team. 2019 to me for the community team represents us hitting the ground running. At that point, we should be firing all cylinders. We should be masters at social media. We should be on the forum. I mean, if you guys are on the forums, you've obviously Kami. We're doing a lot more, responses and creating topics.
Streamers.
We're doing a lot more live streaming. Our stream program has been building for months now.
Hey, we just want the Friday show back, Warships Live, because that was a whole lot of fun, and both Kami and I got to be on it.
Yeah.
Back in when you guys were in Emeryville, that was fantastic. We would love to see that back.
We're going to try and incorporate. We have the programming that we've created, but we have been trying to incorporate a little more fun into those to make sure that we provide that variety of content, for people to watch.
Well, you mentioned the CV rework, so let's touch on that for a second. The carrier rework has been tested in the second half of 2018, presumably for release, we hope, sometime in 2019. What is the biggest challenge that you guys see from the publishing side for the upcoming CV rework?
I think for me, a lot of it is just going to be, and again, this from the community side, just communication. This is, again, I haven't been working on World of Warships that long, but to me, this is the largest change I've worked on. Like, this is a massive change that's going to change the meta. It's going to change, how people play these particular ships. It's going to change how they interact with other ships, and making sure that people understand, first of all, that the game's not going to burn to the ground. Like, we're not going to release carriers that destroy the game. So we're actually trying to go in the reverse direction.
So you worked at Daybreak previously, Sony Online Entertainment, and they are one of the what's the word I want to use? The helmsman of one of the most shaky changes to an online game, and when they changed the new game experience in Star Wars Galaxies. What were those? I know that is one of the buzzwords of the industry. How do you avoid the comparisons and the mistakes that were made in there when you're changing such a fundamental aspect of the carrier game?
So, not providing commentary on that particular part, because it's been almost 10 years. Where I think they fell down, and a lot of what we learned in the industry from that event, is communication is key. The big mistake they made is they made these changes, but they didn't vet their player base. Like, they didn't do it with their player base. That we are doing testing. We're doing constant, testing with players. They didn't do that. We are bringing people in. We're showing them the changes. We're, our community contributors are getting sneak peeks. We're communicating with them. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Making them part of the feedback loop and making them part of the feedback process is critical to bringing this content in a way that is palatable and understood. The worst thing you can do is put out a change, not communicate it well or correctly, and have the community, catch fire over it, over a simple misunderstanding of what your intentions or the actual change is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also I wanted to add on top of that, that with the reworked carriers, we're gonna release the new tutorials. Like, we need to update all the content about how to play carriers, teaching not only new players, but also veteran players about new mechanics. So not too long ago, the other change that's kind of in the air, they announced that we will be seeing World of Warships on console, presumably in the near future. Can you give us any kind of update about how that's going? I know that there's going to be an open beta test here in the near future. I have gotten to play in the alpha test stages on my Xbox, which I've appreciated. That's been fun. But I guess I hear that you're the head of that on the office, Tony. So where is the console game at, and what can players expect from the console experience going forward?
So the console experience is it's actually pretty unique. It's a very different experience from PC World of Warships. You would think, oh, this is how does this even work on a controller? It really does. Like, I was actually stunned the first time I was playing. I was like, this actually feels really natural. I was very impressed by it. We've been doing testing for a little while now. We've got a number of players in testing both Xbox and PS4. Anyone who wants to become a part of that should just go to wowslegends.com. You can sign up for the closed beta. It will start on the 21st. And we would love to have people jump in and test it. If you are a PC player, I do ask you to come in with an open mind. Like, it is not going to be your World of Warships PC experience. It's very different. If you come in with an open mind, you're going to get, it comes down to, it's a fun experience. Like, it may not have the pacing, or it may not have the types of strategy that you're used to, but it really comes down to me, is this game fun? And I think it is.
Alrighty. Well, somebody, and we still don't know who this is, put it out on Twitter that we're here and asked for some questions. So we're going to actually ask a couple of Twitter questions that got put in. So Code Phantom asks, are you going to put all of the premiums into the tech tree so that they can use doubloons to buy them? Or is that going are you going to continue to have some that are only available in the premium store?
So we are actively thinking about this, and hopefully this can become reality next year. But I cannot give too much commitments, but this is our intention.
Gotcha. And then will the new premium, Ed Kirlick asks, will the new premium time be available for doubloons? And will it be the same price as the current overall premium time?
Both questions, the answer is yes.
All right, excellent. I think that that's something a lot of people are happy about. So another Abomination does ask, has World of Warships in its development so far gone the way that it was expected? Did it follow the roadmap, or have there been pretty significant bumps along the road?
There are bumps all the time. Like it's very invisible for you guys. For us, like we change things on the fly. We always adjust. We also we iterate and have to be creative with shifting some of the plans. But overall, we are happy where we are right now, because all these risks they are kind of taken into account, and we always hope to get maximum executed. But everybody understands. Okay, you cannot. You cannot fulfill all of your plans, but we are happy where we are.
So, World of Tanks has been going on for quite some time. Do you anticipate looking forward? Do you have a plan out for 10 years on World of Warships, or 5 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So you reevaluate the next 3 years each year, or
yes. So we have our horizon of planning is 3 years, and every year it's being updated.
Excellent. So I guess the last thing that I was going to ask is just, is there anything about 2019 that you can share with us that's going to be coming up on?
I wish I could, but unfortunately all our announcements are kind of planned and tied to specific events. For example, this weekend we will have VGFest in Moscow.
Which you should watch the Shipstorm tournament.
We actually, you guys actually, Majash is headed there for that.
Majash is in Moscow, and there will be a lot of information coming out about WG Fest.
Well, guys, keep an eye on WG Fest. There will be ships information, so do keep that out. Mm-hmm. But I want to thank you guys very much for being on the show with us today and allowing us to come into the office and record you. It's been fantastic. Mm-hmm. Thank you for lunch, Sasha.
You're welcome, Keller.
Tony didn't make lunch, so that's his. He missed out. But thank you very much, guys, and we will catch you guys the next time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this week, folks. A big thank you to RadarX from Wargaming for allowing us to come into the office, Kami for all of his help and coordination, and especially to Tragicloss for her help with the technical expertise. As always, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Warships Podcast and Twitter at Warships Podcast for updates between episodes. Don't forget to check out Arun on YouTube and Twitch as well. We, of course, want to thank our amazing Patreon backers. If you're interested in supporting us, please consider becoming a Patreon backer yourself. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.